In today's video, I'm going to go over how to solve two-step algebra equations, starting with the basic forms that you'll find and then moving to a little bit more difficult ones. Before I start, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like and subscribe button. So when we get these, we're going to have something such as 2x plus 5 equals 11. And we need to get the x alone, right? And the first thing we need to do is to subtract 5 from both sides of the equation. Okay, we need that x to be alone, so we have to separate out the 2 and the 5 because we want to know what x is equal to. Okay, so the 2 next to that x, we're going to get that eventually to be 1x, and first we need to get rid of the plus 5. Okay, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to minus 5 from both sides of the equation. I'm going to subtract 5. Okay, when I do that, I do that to one side. Notice the plus 5 and the minus 5 will cancel. Then from there, I have to do the same thing to the other side of the equation because you can't just subtract 5 from one side of the equation without doing it to the other side. So the plus 5 and the minus 5 cancels on the left side of the equation. Then when I do 11 minus 5, that equals 6. So now I'm going to bring down what I have, the 2 times the x equals 6. Now it's time for the second step of these multi-step equations, which is to remove the 2 from in front of the x. Right now it's 2 times x. Now that 2 is called the coefficient of x. I need that to go away. Now I'm not going to add or subtract the 2 because right now, see, the 2 is being multiplied by the x. That's what 2x means. 2x means 2 times x. So I want to undo that or reverse that. So the way I'm going to undo the 2 times x, I'm going to divide that 2x by a 2. The 2x divided by the 2, then you're just going to get 1x. Okay, and really when we say 1x, we mean x. Now I have that's equal to my 6. And now I've really decided that I have to divide both sides by 2. The 6 divided by the 2 ends up being 3. So x is equal to 3 in this situation. So the first step is always add or subtract, like I did with the 5, and then like I did there. And then the next step is to get rid of whatever's multiplied in front of the x. Here's another one. 4x minus 5 equals 11. Need to isolate the x, get that by itself. So I'm going to need to remove the 4, but first I'm going to get rid of that minus 5. So what do? The first step to finding out what x is equal to is I'm going to have to add 5 to both sides of the equation. Okay, add 5 to the left side, and the minus 5 that's above there and the plus 5, those will cancel to 0. Now, when it cancels to 0, I don't really need to write the 0, okay? I usually will just cross out the minus 5 and the plus 5. But again, whatever I do to the left side, I have to do to the right side of the equation. So 11 plus 5, I get 16 on the right side. I'll bring down the 4 times x plus the 0, or just 4x is now equal to 16. Now it's time to get rid of the number in front of the x, that 4. Okay, it's being 4 times x, so I have to divide by 4, and I have to do it on the right side as well. The 4 divided by 4 gets me plain x, and the 16 divided by 4 will get me the 4. So here's another one solving two-step equations where I first have to do something to combine like terms. Notice that I have the 3x and the 5x are still on the left side. Now those are like terms, the 3x and the 5x. So I want to gather those like terms together. Adding them, I'll get 8x. I still have plus 8 equals 40. Now I'm to where I was in the last few examples. I need to get rid of the plus 8 first. So I subtract 8 from both sides. 40 minus 8 will get me 32 on the right side. And I have 8x now equals the 32. Now to get rid of the 8 in front of the x, it's being multiplied. I'll divide it by 8. Then I have to do this. Then I get an x. Then 32 also has to be divided by 8. And then you get 4. X is equal to 4. Here is an example where we have, notice we have the x variable on the left side of the equal sign, and then we have another x term, the 8x is on the right side of the equal sign. Now in the one I just did, I gathered or I added the like terms, the x's, before I continued to the solving the equation. However, you can't exactly add the 6x and the 8x right now because they're on opposite sides of the equation, so you can't just add them. But I do need to get the 6x and the 8x together as one term. So there's different ways I can do that, but one way to do that, what I would suggest is, and also notice we have the -3 on one side and the +7 on the other. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to take that, I'm going to add 3 first to both sides. So the -3 and the +3 cancel. Notice I added a 3 on the right side, and notice how I lined that up with the 7. Okay, I didn't put the +3 underneath the 8x on the right side because those aren't like terms, so I wouldn't even be able to combine them. I had the +7 on the right side, I put the +3 underneath that. Okay, now I'm left with, on the left side, just the 6x because the -3 and the +3 go away. Now I have equals 8x plus 10. Okay, at this point I need to get the 8x away from the right side. I need to get the x's on the left side of the equation and then leave the number 10 on the right side. I could have done it where I got the x's on the right side, it doesn't matter, but right now I need to make sure I get the x terms together. So that's why I subtracted 8x from the right side, because that -8x will eliminate the 8x that was there. But I have to do the same thing to the left side where I had a 6x. I'm going to take away that 8x. And when I compute that, see the 8x and the -8x went away, and I just have that 10 alone. I don't have to write +10, I just write 10. The 6x minus 8x, that's a -2x. So at this point I have -2 times x is equal to 10. So now we have a number multiplied by times the x, which is the -2. I need to get x all by itself. So I will divide both sides by -2. So I'll get rid of that -2 by dividing by -2, doing the same to the right side. I get 10 divided by -2. The -2x that I had is canceled by the -2. What do I get? I get a 1x, or just x. And now I have to compute the right side. 10 divided by -2, that's going to get me -5. So that's the answer. Okay. So I want to point out too, I got x is -5. I could have done it where I got the x's on the right side of the equation. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to show you that when I started with that, I could have actually subtracted I could have moved the x's to the right. Sometimes people don't like it when you end up with a negative, like I did in the last one, a -x, -2x. So they want to end up, they want to only have positive x's. It doesn't matter either way you're comfortable with. So in this case though, they might, I could actually subtract, so this is my old one, and then I could actually take this and I could subtract 6x from both sides. Okay, the last time I brought the x's over to the left side, again I ended up with a -2x. But you could have done this instead. You could have taken and subtracted the 6x from this side and then subtracted it here. That would give me, see the 6x minus the 6x, that's going to cancel that. And then what I've got is the 8x minus the 6x is, well, I'm going to bring down the -3. Bring it down. It's like a -3 now. Bring down the equal sign. 8x, take away the 6x, that's 2x. Bring down the +7. Okay, now I need the x to be alone, right? So the first thing I need to do is get rid of this +7 that's over near it. Okay, anything that's added or subtracted, we get rid of that first. So I subtract 7 from the right, have to do that. Subtract 7 on the left. -3 minus 7 is -10. That will equal 2 times x. So at this point, need to get rid of the 2 that's in front of the x. It's 2 times x right now. The opposite of that is dividing this by that 2. So if I divide the 2, I'll divide the 2x by the 2, and then I'm going to end up dividing the -10 by the 2 as well. So when I divide -10 by 2, that comes out to be -5, and that equals, notice the 2 over 2 canceled to 1, or just plain x. So we have -5 is equal to x. So you could move whatever the variable x to either side. It doesn't matter as long as it's alone. Now here we have one where it's going to be a two-step equation, but the first thing we have to do is we're going to distribute. Okay? You need your distributing property here. So notice how we have a -3 out in front of that parentheses. When you have a number out in front of the parentheses like the -3, you're going to have to multiply in. I use the arrows to represent multiplying the -3 times both terms in there. So the 2x is a term, then there's a plus, and then the 1 is a term. Okay, terms are separated by addition or subtraction signs. I'm going to need to do that -3 times the 2x, and then I'm going to get, when I do that, I'm going to get -3 times the 2x. That's going to get me a -6x. And when I do that, I get a -6x, and then I'm going to do the -3 times, or I bring down the plus, then I do the -3 times that 1, so -3 times 1 is a -3. See, at this point I have a -6x plus a -3. I've just distributed. Okay, so now for the next thing I need to do is write that just as -6x minus 3, because when you do plus a -3, you want to simplify that to just minus a 3. So that is going to be on the left side of the equation now, and I have equals, and I'm just going to rewrite this as 9x plus 7. Now what have I got? I've got x term over here, the -6x, and I've got another x term over here, the 9x, and I've got just a plain number -3 and a plain number +7. So here's the the thing I need to do now is get the like terms together. Okay, so I want to get the x's together on one side of the equal sign, and I want to get the regular numbers on one side. So I could either add 6x to this side and then add it here, or you could subtract 9x from this side and subtract it there. Well, a lot of people, when they're first starting with these equations, don't really like to have the negative sign in front of the x, so they might add 6x to both sides. So if I add 6x to both sides, notice that this is going to be -6x plus a 6x cancels to nothing. You got to bring down this as a -3, bring the equal sign, and notice now I'm adding 9x plus 6x, which is 15x. Bring down that +7. Okay, now I need to get rid of this +7 because I have the x variable there. I need to get that alone. I will get rid of the 15, but the first thing I do is get rid of whatever is added or subtracted, which is the +7. So to get rid of that +7, I'm going to take that and subtract 7. Have to do it to the left side. -3 minus 7 is -10. So that goes away. Now I have -10 is equal to 15 times x. So here's my second step where I get rid of the number multiplied times x. So it's the 15 times x. To get rid of that, to make it a 1x, I will divide that by 15, and I'll divide then the left side by 15. So I get a -10 over 15. Now the 15x and the 15 cancels to just plain x. When I simplify that, I'm going to actually end up with -2 over 3, and that is going to equal my x. Okay, so that's how you do these one-step or two-step equations. But sometimes, as you see at the end of those questions, I had to actually end up either getting like terms together, or I had to get them distributed or something first. So hopefully that helps you with these two-step equations, and you can just keep looking at the video if you want to keep practicing, and you'll get better and better at them.